people across our state coming together to provide support and care for people in the Northern Rivers. I'm joined this morning by the Deputy Premier, Paul Toole, our Minister for Flood Recovery, Steph Cook, local members, Janelle Saffin, Kevin Hogan, Chris Galaptis, Gurmesh Singh, and all coming together to do what we can and stand side by side the people of the Northern Rivers in this very difficult time. And the stories that we've heard up here, the images that we're seeing, do not do justice to what is happening on the ground. The amount of courage, the courage of our people during what has been an unprecedented, unpredicted catastrophe has been truly heroic. They have been on the ground. I met someone last night who showed me a vision on his phone of going out in a jet ski and saving a young boy stranded in his home who came out the front door, a 4-year-old boy in his life jacket. These stories are all across the north, all across the state, and that spirit of sacrifice, those values, what we've seen on the ground here, horrific scenes in Lismore today, overwhelming scenes. But what's more overwhelming is the spirit of our people. Neighbour helping neighbour, mate helping mate. That's the New South Wales spirit, and it's on full display here in Lismore and all through the Northern Rivers. Can I thank our SES, our Rural Fire Service, Fire and Rescue, our police, the Australian Defence Force who's on the ground, everyone coming together. But it's not just those organised volunteers. It's just every single person right across here doing everything they can to get people through. And we will get through. Day by day, as we move through this, taking every day at a time. The strength and resilience of the people of Lismore, the strength and resilience of the people of the Northern Rivers was on full display today. The spirits are high in very, very difficult circumstances. People have gone through incredibly tough times. Obviously, we've lost 5 lives, and our thoughts and prayers and hearts go out to them and their families at this difficult time. But many people have lost their homes, have lost their businesses, going back to their homes and seeing the destruction that is there. But right across the board, at all levels of government, whether that's federal, state, council level, all sides of politics, everyone is coming together to stand side by side these communities to help every single one get through. And we know that that will be tough, and we know there's a long road ahead. But after everything we've gone through as a state over the last few years, I know we will get through this too, as challenging as the task seems today. It's going to be a big job, but I know we'll get through it, and I know our people have the strength and resilience to do that, and we will be doing everything we can right across all levels of government to provide that care and support to ensure as we're in the immediate stage now that people continue to be safe. Those rescues that are required continue to occur, particularly as we see this event occurring right across our state. In addition to that, the cleanup, the rebuild, homelessness is going to be an issue that's front and centre for us. We want people into homes. And housing is going to be a substantial challenge. We are already working on that from a whole of government perspective. And we will not stop day and night to ensure that Lismore and the Northern Rivers doesn't just get back on its feet, but comes back stronger. And that's exactly what we are focused on doing right across government, right across different levels of politics here. And that's incredibly important. We know it's been tough, but I have complete confidence in our people that we will pull through and come out stronger the other side. I want to say as well, and Steph will, as the Emergency Services Minister, will provide some further information in relation to the challenges that we're seeing across our whole state right now. But in addition to that, there are many, many people who are still affected by evacuation orders, by flood warnings, evacuation warnings. Please continue to follow those instructions of the SES. They're there to keep you, your friends and your family safe, and that's incredibly important as we move through this difficult time. We can't be complacent There is still challenging weather forecasts that lie ahead, but if we continue to work together, if we continue to follow those instructions, we'll come through stronger. I just want to say again to every single person who has volunteered their time, but importantly the whole community, for everything that you have done. To be looking out for your neighbour, to be looking out for your mates, to be looking out for strangers and providing that care and support, I think makes us truly proud to be Australian today. We know there's a long journey, but I know very well as Premier that spirit that I've seen over the last few days will ensure that we get through this stronger out the other side. I'm now going to pass, there'll be a few speakers today. The Deputy Premier will speak. We will then have Steph Cook as the Emergency Services Minister will provide an update. Janelle Saffin, the member for Lismore, will speak from a local community perspective, and the local Mayor, Steve Krieg, will provide an update from the local perspective as well.
Well, thanks, Premier. And we know that people are hurting across the state. We know that people are hurting in this particular area. And when you have a look at some of those scenes, I mean, it's devastating. It's horrible, and it's a reminder of what they've actually endured over the last week. This is a catastrophic event, and we know that they need help right now. I want to say that our police and our emergency services are doing an amazing job. I've seen crews that have come from various parts of the state, from Sydney, from regional New South Wales, to be in this part of the state to actually support these communities right now. We listened to a lot of stories today. We spoke to a lot of homeowners, we spoke to business owners, and it's just going to be a tough journey ahead for them. But I want them to know that the New South Wales Government will stand side by side with them on this journey. We also know that there's a lot of people lending support, people that have come up here to actually visit family, visit friends, people that don't even know people, just wanting to be a part of the clean-up and assist one another. That is why we've also reached out to the ADF, and from tomorrow we'll see another 900 ADF starting to land on the ground over the coming days. This is important because this is about not only coming up here and listening, it's about making sure that we act now. This is what those communities want. They want to see the clean-up happening. So if you are going to be in this area and you can actually provide an extra set of hands, that is required. Now, put you on a broom to push some of that mud out of homes and out of businesses, to be able to rip up some of that carpet and throw it out, to actually get the gyprock off the walls. This is a reminder that we need every set of hands in these communities where we can, and that additional support is going to be welcomed here by these communities. I want to say as well that this is going to be a long journey. This is going to be a journey that the New South Wales Government will stand side by side with these communities that have been impacted. So when the media go, when the TV have gone back to their home bases, it'll be our people, the New South Wales Government, that'll stay here with the community to ensure that people get a roof over their heads once again. You have a look around the main streets, you can actually, it's a reminder to everybody. There are people that have been displaced from their homes. There's kids' toys down the main street. There's chairs, there's everything. All of their belongings have been thrown out. It is a long journey, but importantly, we'll roll up our sleeves and we'll work with you.
Thank you, Premier and Deputy. I'll make a few short remarks this morning. My first as the Minister for Flood Recovery, not yet sworn in, but I'm here today, as I was yesterday in Ballina. I'm here today to have a look at the scale of what's confronting us, and it is simply unimaginable unless you're here and you can actually see it in person, which is what I've had the opportunity to do over several hours today. There's no doubt we've got a long road in front of us. I think when you're wanting to eat an elephant, what's the best way to do it? Well, you do it one bite at a time. And we're here for that, and that's what we'll be doing day in, day out. That's what I'll be leading, a multi-agency response to ensure that this recovery goes as quickly and as smoothly for people as it possibly can. I want to acknowledge how much people are enduring at the moment. I, of course, had the opportunity to talk with business owners today, with kids, with people in evacuation centres who have absolutely lost everything. It's indescribable. There's a lot of people that are feeling shock still. There's people that are understandably really angry. There's people who are grieving already, and as they clean out the contents of their house, it's pretty easy to understand why that is, when your whole life and everything you own is just sodden and stinking. So we'll just keep working away at that, one day at a time. As the Deputy Premier has announced this morning, we are expecting an additional 900 ADF personnel to roll out from tomorrow. Yesterday, the Feds were talking about there being an extra 2,000 ADF available. We asked for everything they could give us. Today, they've increased that offer to 5,000, and we've said we'll take every one of those as well. So far, starting from tomorrow, they've offered us 900, and we'll start to see those roll out. We're very grateful for that, but we're really hoping that that does ramp up closer to that 5,000 mark really quickly, and we would really welcome that. And when you see the task at hand in the streets of Lismore, we need every one of them. Many hands make light work is the old saying. The more hands we get onto this, the quicker we'll get out the other side. The SES, as the combat agency, has been leading the rapid damage assessments. That's what we do when homes are when the water goes down and we're able to see what's left over. I just wanted to give the community an update to say that over the past couple of days, there's been 1,448 rapid damage assessments undertaken, and of that, 946 premises have been deemed uninhabitable. So the task around housing and accommodation is absolutely enormous, and the Premier this morning, the Deputy Premier, have indicated as a government we'll be doing everything we can to explore every available option in relation to helping people get back on their feet in the short term, medium and long term, and ultimately back into a place that they can call home. So that's a focus of us as well. I'm just going to put my other hat on now in relation to emergency services. We still have operations occurring right across the state today. There's a risk of thunderstorms and heavy rainfall right across the east coast and right down even into that Riverina area, the place that I love to call home. So the threat really to other communities is still there, and as the Premier has indicated, if you're the subject of an evacuation order or an evacuation warning, please do as the emergency services ask. If you're the subject of a warning, please pack that emergency kit and be ready to go at short notice. Our emergency services, as a result of what we've seen in the north and through the west, are stretched, and if you can really give us a hand by being ready to go at short notice, that'd be pretty appreciative. Finally, I just want to once again extend my deep gratitude to our emergency services, particularly the volunteers. I know the SES have come under a bit of heavy fire in the last few days. I think a lot of that's been directed at volunteers is really unwarranted. You guys have done an incredible job, particularly up here in the Northern Rivers. I know you've worked 18, 20 hours a day, helping wherever you possibly can, on boats, on anything that you can to get people to safety. And I just want you to know that as Minister, I back you in all the way. And I know that the rest of the government does as well. So thank you very much for everything that you're doing. Thank you very much to the other emergency services organisations. There is a list, and I'll just quickly run them off because each and every one of them is worthy. The Rural Fire Service, Fire and Rescue New South Wales, Surf Lifesaving New South Wales, Marine Rescue New South Wales, and the Volunteers Association of New South Wales. Thank you very much. I know you're really, really tired. I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of you over the last few days and you're busted. I totally get that. Please keep going, but please, more than anything, know that I've got your back. I really believe in you, and I really want to say thanks for everything that you've been doing. Thanks.
Thanks, Steph. Thank you. When I was walking around town with the Premier, people were saying, will we get through this? Yeah, thank you. And adjust. People were saying, will we get through this? And I was able to say to them, yes, we will get through this because we're such a wonderful community. And I live in Lismore. I'm for the Lismore electorate. I have Murwillumbah, Kyogle and Tenterfield. But look, I said to the locals here, we'll get through this. Other people were saying, Janelle, people are saying we're not going to rebuild here in Lismore. And I had Kevin with me and then the Premier, and we assured them that we will do this and that we'll be here, and this is our home, and that's what people do wherever they are, and we'll rebuild better. And look, there's stories that are heroic and horror stories, and we've got both. And as a community, we're having to respond to both of those. To the heroes, we applaud them. To the people who've lived and living through some of the horror stories, we're saying we support you and we'll back you in. And the other thing people are saying is, oh, you know, things will die down, people will go away. We've assured them that that won't happen. And I'm pretty good at cutting through, and my job as member is to cut through. And I've been doing that over the last few days. I've had direct access daily to the Premier, where I text him or ring him, and I have to say he's stepped up on everything. The same with Truly, or the Deputy Premier, and with the Minister, Steph Cook. And I just have to say they've been there for us, so it was good that they were here today. But look, there's a lot of work, and sure, we could have always done some things better, and we'll have to make sure that we learn those lessons and we do it, but we will rebuild, it will be stronger, but we've really got to deal with the housing and the homelessness issue. And I just want to say and look, there's too many to mention, I say everybody who's in a uniform, thank you, because there are so many here. And look, I will mention one, St John's Ambulance, because I know they're here, but they're not standing down here. And I know they often don't get mentioned, but to everyone in a uniform, thank you. And to all of those people who wear board shorts and stubbies and thongs and all of that, thank you too, because you're our community. To everyone who went out in a boat, you know, in blow-up canoes, and all of those things that they went out and rescued people, a great big thank you. And to the media, thank you for the coverage, and don't go away because we'll need you. Thank you.
I've saved the best till last. For those who don't know me, my name's Steve Krieg. I'm the Mayor of Lismore, and you definitely know there's something wrong when you get so many politicians in one spot. But I'd like to thank the Premier, the Deputy, the Ministers, whoever else has come up. You can't put in pictures, you can't watch on TV, you can't listen on radio what we've witnessed today and what we've lived through in the last nearly a week. You know, having lived it, it's probably the most horrific thing that I hope I never see anything to this scale again. But for me, as the Mayor of Lismore, only 12 weeks in the role, I'm not a politician. I just make coffee for a living, who got elected to help the council. No one thought this was ever going to happen, but to hear the support, the level of support, Dominic Perrottet is an amazing man under a heap of duress at the moment, and just to be able to travel around with him and show him what we've been living through, show him what we'll be experiencing next month. But this is 6 months, 12 months time. As you've heard, there are houses that aren't going to be standing anymore. This is a heartbreaking time for our region. It's not Lismore centric at the moment, it is regional. You know, we've only just been able to get through to some of our villages in my local government area this morning. It's total and utter devastation, and you know, you can't call this a flood event. It's a natural disaster of the greatest order, and you've all seen it. But walking the streets, you really get a feel for it. You get to see the emotion. We've got residents who have had businesses in our CBD for 50 years. They're third generation. They're family passed down business, who are broken people at the moment. They're shattered. They're sitting on the ground, surrounded in mud and debris, bawling their eyes out. It's going to be hard, but for me, as a small business owner myself in the CBD of Lismore, I'm determined to rebuild. I'm determined to come back. I'm determined for my kids to be able to go to their school again one day. It's a great community, it's a great area, and with the help of every level of government and the help of the Australian people, we'll come back. Thanks very much.
Questions?
Thanks, Steve.
Can I ask one quickly? I've got a question, please. So you said today that you said to the lady in the shop it's not happening with regard to shutting down CBD in Lismore. So that if we're going to prevent another disaster like this, that's going to require money, and some of the buildings are going to be knocked down, they're being condemned.
Yeah.
So how, where's the government going to? I know you said we want to do everything we can.
Yeah.
So you're going to back up that it's not happening from us with money and plans to flood through Lismore?
I think it comes down to two things: money and planning. They're both crucial. But you know, this is a great town, just like all the communities up in the Northern Rivers. We need to keep people safe, but we need these communities to thrive again, and they will. And that's going to take money. That's going to take support from all levels of government. This is going to be a team effort. And I think the points that have been made today from elected officials are completely right, where you go through these, it's very clear to me today, you're on the ground and there's a lot of heartbreak, and the journey's going to be long, and we need to be here the whole step, the whole journey. That's what we're going to do through this entire period of time, and it's going to take time. There's going to be different issues at different points in time. When we talk about planning and those issues, I mean, they are issues that we'll need to deal with, that we'll need to get across. And right now, what I'm focused on, and every person behind me is focused on, is getting people back on their feet as quickly as possible. Getting money out the door. You know, we have these grant programs, federal, state. I don't want to see it get caught up in unnecessary bureaucracy. I want money in the hands of those who need it, whether it's a business owner. I met Steve today, who runs a local bakery. He was thinking of not opening after the 2017 flood. He's then put everything back into it again, and now he's lost it all. But he's tough, and he wants to get back, and he will get back. And our job is to make sure we do everything we can to help him do that, to help him achieve what his dreams, to help him provide. You know, 15 people working for him. They don't have a job at the moment. We've talked about COVID for 2 years. You know, what we're seeing here, COVID has nothing on this. This is completely devastating. But I know we'll get through, and I know we will rebuild, and I know that we'll put every dollar into it from a state government level. My discussions with the Prime Minister have been in the same vein. But you know, one thing's words, one thing's action, and it's not just short-term support here; it's going to be long-term support. Now, our team as well. You know, if you're looking at, Janelle spoke about homelessness. I mean, being in the evacuation centre today, and as Steph has spoken about, there are people who cannot go back to their homes. We're going to have to rebuild, and in the same time as rebuilding, we're going to have to provide short-term and medium-term accommodation. It's a crisis. It's a substantial crisis, and we're going to do everything we can to provide that care and support in the short term and get every one of these communities back on their feet as quickly as possible. And that's my commitment as Premier.
Just on those grant programs that you were talking about earlier, there's obviously a lot of things available, but there's a lot of frustration in Lismore and across the region about how to access them. You know, people have lost documents, they don't have internet access, telecommunications are down. And those payments are quite important in the immediate short term. What are the solutions you're looking at for those? Any other ways to roll out the money?
Well, we want to make it as easy as possible. Now, for those, and I know telecommunications, particularly in areas like Ballina right now, are terrible. Now, the advice I've received from Telstra in that sector is that will be up and running very, very shortly. So that is important, and that is fundamental. I mean, that's been one of the biggest challenges, which is coordination. You can't coordinate without communication. And what those communities have done without communication, telecommunications being available and being able to pull everything together, has just been amazing. In relation to business support from a state level, everything's through Service New South Wales, and for personal income and individual payments, that occurs through Services Australia, through the Commonwealth, Now, we are working very closely to not just increase those payments, but to expand eligibility as well. One of the issues on the ground today are people who are not citizens. They don't actually get access to those individual payments. Well, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable because up here, we need to support everybody, not just Australian citizens. And so, in fact, I heard stories that many of the Fijian community here going out, doing, putting their lives on the line, and then supporting businesses being out there today, moving furniture, helping the local community. What, do they not deserve to get paid? Of course they deserve to get the financial support. So we want to make it as easy as possible. We've been working, whilst we've been driving around today in the car, speaking to our teams back in Sydney in relation to Service New South Wales, making sure there is very little red tape, very little bureaucracy, cash out as quickly as possible. That's what we're focused on. It's not going to, and I'll also say, I accept it's not going to be perfect. When you're dealing with something of this scale, not everything's going to work out correctly. I accept that from the outset, and I apologise from the outset because I know that there'll be mistakes made along the way. But from an intention perspective, we are all in here.
Premier, without communication, how can you guarantee that some communities that are still cut off, that there's not people still needing to be rescued? What's being done in that space to make sure that people who are still isolated are getting rescued?
I'll get the yes.
If I can answer it. So the briefings we've had through the SES down at the state headquarters from the local teams here, yes, communications is a challenge, but they've had all manner of things, aerial patrols, trying to get out and do reconnaissance work, along alternate accesses into some communities where possible, just to make contact. Those are the sorts of things that are going on in the knowledge that communications can be challenging.
Yeah, in some of those places, the water is still pretty high.
Correct.
People may not be able to wave out of a window. People haven't had food and water in there. Is it likely that the death toll may rise?
As others have pointed out, very much from the outset, we've got to brace ourselves for a toll, and we've seen the worst imaginable outcome with deaths as a result of this extraordinary tragedy. Of course, as you go through such a significant, broad landscape, you can't rule out the prospects of more. The register find, reunite, the unaccounted for persons is extremely low, which is a good sign, and let's hope it stays that way. But we'd be foolish to suggest we should rule it out right now.
Just heard about the ADF reinforcements coming in. Where should they be going? How can we guarantee that they are going into those isolated communities?
Just like all the teams being deployed now, all those decisions, all those priorities are being led by the local incident management teams, coordinated by the state emergency services and the police authorities. Where it's needed most is determined by those locals, and as the Premier and the Minister have said, a further 900 commencing from tomorrow will start being mobilised up here over the coming days and weeks, and they too will be assigned into those priority areas as determined by the local authorities.
Premier, what do you say to those communities, that Maynard and Woodburn, all these communities who really have felt forgotten for the whole week? And yes, there have been challenges with communications, but what do you say to them? Because there's a lot of upset and angst there.
Yeah, I know, and I don't believe they've been forgotten. And the discussions that we've had during the week have been to get as much support there as possible. And I think when we go back, and we're through all of this, and today's not the day, but in terms of preparation, there needs to be that greater support in whatever catastrophic event occurs. You have to prepare for the worst. And the stories, and I'll visit many of those communities tomorrow. The stories that I've heard, people, in some of those areas they haven't had access to just essential items, food, clothing, and many have been cut off and isolated. I mean, this has been a completely devastating event, devastating, unpredicted, but ultimately we're going to do everything we can to get them back on their feet as quickly as possible, and that's my commitment. It's been and the fact that others have come in as well, and I mean it shouldn't have to happen, but the fact that it has makes you proud to be part of this great state. But the stories of people, dropping in food supplies and essential services as those communities have been completely cut off. I mean, even from our perspective, and you'll see, all of you will show vision tonight, but as has been said earlier, no vision tonight can actually portray the destruction on the ground, the feeling on the ground. We need to be doing everything we can to have the ministers up today over the last couple of days, I think is incredibly important, because this government, and it's both sides of politics, all working together to ensure we get everybody through it. And I know that, as you say, Ash, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hurting, and that's completely understandable. And the spirit of this government will be the same as the spirit of every single person on the ground, looking after everyone to get through.
Can I ask you about my previous colleague asked a question about Lismore being got. So do you, I suppose, promise and putting money, a significant amount of money towards rebuilding and restoring things exactly as it was?
We're going to make it better. Not as it was, we're going to make it better. Lismore is a great town, and we're going to make it greater. It's full of very strong and resilient and great Australians. And we will not just rebuild it, we will make Lismore better.
So council can expect a lot of cash then, to fix all the roads, to fix all the buildings?
Yeah, well,
I need a lot of cash.
yeah. Well, as I said, I'm not going
I'll make sure I'm behind him here.
I can tell you, we are not going to spare a dollar, and we're putting everything into this, and the Northern Rivers, our entire state has just been hit incredibly hard for years now. I mean, with the Deputy Premier, previous expenditure review committees that go back 4 years, when we were going through the drought and getting all our farming communities through that difficult times in regional towns. And then we had the bushfires and the floods and the pandemic. And that's what you're hearing on the ground here today. It's just been belting after belting after belting, but we still stand strong. And communities come together, and the government has been there to support and will continue to be there. As I said, mistakes will get made, because I know the mammoth operation that now needs to occur, and it's going to take weeks and months and years. In particular, your point, Serena, we're going to get, and we are going to get, Lismore back stronger than ever. It's going to take a lot of investment. It's going to take a long journey, but we're going to be there. And when as we said, when the cameras go, we are going to be here. We're going to be based here, and we're going to do whatever we can to provide that support to get Lismore back and all the communities back as quickly as possible.
So just in terms of the funding that we should expect, is it going to be, from what I know you haven't really made any real decisions,
Yeah, I can't
but in
determine
terms
that yet.
of, like,
Yeah.
more personal grants, or is there going to be a lot of funding pumped into council? Like, how do you think you can tackle this right now?
Well, it's hard. I mean, as you saw yourself, Ash, like you're seeing on the ground there, mass devastation, and you've just got to look at it and work through this day by day, and that's what we'll do. And once I get a greater assessment at each step of the way, then we'll make those decisions. But at the moment, to me, the number one priority is to keep our people safe and look after them. The mental health support that we need to provide is going to be immense. We've got housing. I mean, well, let's get before that, the cleanup. We need the cleanup, and as the Deputy Premier has said, 900 ADF personnel, in addition to all the other government support services on the ground, will be there to get the cleanup done as quickly as possible. We need to get, we can't rebuild Lismore overnight. We can't rebuild these communities overnight, but we can sure as hell clean up the mess that's been left by this flood. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Then we're going to have the housing issues, of which I think we've all the members behind, and Janelle spoke about. I mean, the housing is going to be a massive challenge, but we're going to work through that, and we're going to deliver on it. And then the infrastructure. I mean, we've got different ministers, different parts of government, all working through this. We've had bridges washed away. We've had roads substantially damaged. That's going to take time. And the other issue we've got in the short term is labour shortages. Getting a skill set here. Electricians, plumbers. Like we were short. We've had labour shortages across our state over the course of the pandemic, probably pre-pandemic. And now we've got this challenge here. So Ash, I don't have the answer to your question.
Premier, now that you've seen it for yourself, there's no arguing that Lismore is a disaster zone. It looks like the cyclone has torn through there. Will you commit to guaranteeing that Lismore will be declared a disaster zone so that they'll be able to access more funding?
Funding's not going to be an issue. We'll provide whatever funding we need. Yeah. Well, if that's and I'll work through that and get advice on that. And obviously, insurance, and we haven't raised insurance yet today, but that's a big concern on the ground. I know the Insurance Council of Australia is up tomorrow. The Treasurer, I've tasked the Treasurer to be working very closely with insurance companies, with the Insurance Council of Australia, to make sure that there is. How about we start with yes rather than no, and work from that. That is my expectation. But I think it's very pleasing that the Insurance Council will come up. In addition to that, though, on whatever declarations need to be made will be made. But from my perspective as Treasurer, in terms of state funding, we will do whatever we can, invest whatever we can to get communities through. We've just spent, and I don't want to talk about dollars, but $46 billion over 2 years on the pandemic. Well, what's the point of doing that if we can't get communities back on their feet? There's no point putting all the money into JobKeeper and all the state funding support packages that my former role we put together, all the business support to have businesses broken at the end of it. So we are all in here at all levels of government, and we'll do whatever it takes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.